Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Today we're going to talk about hybrids, string hybrids of various different kinds. It's a jungle out there in strings. You have the recommended strings, you have the gear guide on tennisnerd.net, so you can check that out. But I want to talk and get into depth about the growing popularity of the hybriding two different strings. A string hybrid is simply where there's a different string in the mains and the crosses. So two different strings. The idea is of course to get the best abilities of the string setup as possible, whether you want more comfort, more spin, more control, or more power. So you see many different pros use gut hybrid. So gut poly hybrid, as you might know, natural gut is a string that holds tension the best on the market. Still, it's expensive, comes at a premium, but the best tension maintenance, and that's why you see it in rackets of many ATP pros. If you look at the top 10, there are like two guys not using a natural gut hybrid. So they use a polyester string, sometimes in the crosses, sometimes in the mains. The string you put in the mains is what gives the string bed its strongest ingredient. The main strings are what you should think about first, and then you put something in the cross string, that's the secondary ingredient. But you can see players like Tommy Paul use a natural gut in the crosses, but you have Novak Djokovic, for example, using natural gut in the mains. It's not so common on the club level to use natural gut, although you see it from time to time because it's a premium price. But if you can afford it and you're not playing maybe in Florida or other very humid places where the natural gut tends to snap faster, then I think it's a great string and it holds tension really well. So natural gut hybrids, you see it also on the WTA Tour, but it's not quite as common. Not sure whether it's because they hit flatter generally on the WTA Tour and they prefer to have a bit more lift on the ball, or there's some other factors, but it's definitely more popular among the top pros on the men's tour. One thing you see as well, which is what Casper Ruud uses, for example, is a polyester hybrid, meaning there's one polyester in the mains and another polyester in the crosses. Polyesters, as you know, kind of came into force on the tour in 1997 when Guga Kuerten won the French Open. He used Big Banger from L'Axolon and got impressive spin and control on his shots, while other players used gut or multi-filament strings, which are far less spin focused and not as controlled. Issue with polyester strings, or monofilament strings as they are called, is that they do drop tension quickly and they're quite firm. So if you have a sensitive arm, I would recommend to either hybrid with a softer string or stay away from them or drop your tension. And you can use a multi-filament string, you don't get the same spin and control, but it's better for comfort. But what you're seeing now is that players want to experiment a little bit, and what you want to have in your string bed is some movement, because the movement creates a snapback effect, meaning that the strings bend out of place when you hit the ball, that's always the case, and then snap back into place. You don't see that with natural gut, and you don't see that much if you have a full bed of multi-filament, because the strings move. And you might remember back in the old days, players used to move the strings all the time and used to have the clickety-clack sound. I sometimes play against guys who still use multi because they want to save their arm or they just prefer the feel, and you're going to have a lot of that clickety-clack sound when players move the string. But most players today use polyester monofilament strings to get more control, more spin, and that's also the most common string. And there are an endless ocean, jungle, whatever you want to call it, of polyester strings. There's so many brands, shapes, colors, gauges, all these things make it more confusing, especially if you're gonna make a hybrid. Tourline asked me some time back to help them with their Omakase program, which is a program where you answer a questionnaire, and based on your answers you get a custom string hybrid from Tourline, and it's something that's been very popular and seems to have worked well. If you put two shaped strings in a string bed, you might have the strings like locking in place, and it doesn't really help the movement. And string movement is important, as you see in these types of spin rackets, which is the Extreme Pro I have here. They usually have more open grommets, so-called spin grommets, in the mains to encourage the string to move more, to create more spin. So it's something we see in the modern game, and you can also think about it when you string. But overall, if you're gonna string two different strings, I would recommend to use one round and one shaped string. And you've seen this for a while now from manufacturers. Now latest with Solinco, where they have a Hyper G round string, and that is better in a hybrid. It's supposed to help the string, the regular Hyper G, for example, or the Hyper G soft, if you want a softer string, help the shaped string move a bit. And there are of course various different approaches to hybriding strings. You can do it where it's kind of starkly different. This is one Nordic Dots 127, there's their TS topspin string, and I put like a Fury C4, a round string, orange string. I like orange, as you know, with the brand colors. And I tried that in this Nordic Dots prototype racket, or you can try 2 strings of the same colorway. This is a very slick, round, easy moving poly in the crosses, and then that shaped string in the mains. So you can go all black. You can of course hybrid a multi-filament as well. And one thing I want to point out, here I'm using a string I really like, a multi I really like, called Gold from String Project. It's been a favorite of mine. And I use all the power here in the crosses. What you have to think about here is that usually when you have a multi-filament, you increase tension, and it also has a different property, a way of engaging with the racket. Then if you had that at 55 pounds and you have the polyester at 51 pounds, the racket deforms. The racket will likely be longer due to the multi pulling more with its higher tension. So when you have a difference of the crosses and the mains, a difference in tension, don't overdo it. Don't go higher than 2 kilos or 4 pounds. I know players do that and they're happy with it, but most likely the racket will deform if you do that. So good to keep in mind. It might feel longer or it might compress and be wider. Because of this compression thing, I would be more keen to cut it out when this has lost its playability, because otherwise the racket might deform. So good to keep that in mind. But that's also an approach to get more comfort, not needing to pay for the gut. I would say this is a very good multi. It's not quite a gut level multi, but it's good. So you have different approaches here, and you can play around as some pros do when they have their off season or they have time to test, using a different string, a different tension. And I do like a shaped poly in the mains, round poly in the crosses. I think that's an interesting setup. I usually go 51 pounds on the shape poly, depending a bit on the racket, and 49 pounds on the cross. That's 23 kilo mains, 22 kilo crosses. I think that works for my game. Obviously, this is a highly personal thing, so it might not work for you. If you learned something, please click like. If you like the work I do and the team at Tennis Nerd, please subscribe to the channel. That's it for today. Have a nice day now, and don't forget to play some tennis.